Welcome back, everyone, to episode 6 of TBD, the Colorado Springs Real Estate Podcast. I'm Rob Thompson, associate broker here at the agency in Colorado Springs, here with my colleagues.
Nanette Lampman, also an associate broker here at the agency.
Mike Mattice, loan officer at Total Lending Concepts.
And Laurie, Ristig, also a realtor at the agency.
And we are here bringing back TBD with episode 6. So last time we talked about median values in the city and what salary you needed to earn to meet those median values. This week we're going to talk about credit worthiness, how to get, maintain, and have good credit. So without further ado, let's do the word of the day, Nanette, before we get into the topic of the day.
Let's do that. Okay, my word of the day is... Just a quick pause here.
No worries.
I really did have it pulled up. Don't know where it went. It's mineral rights.
Mineral rights.
It is, and I'm just going to get you the definition of mineral rights.
Do we have mineral rights here in Colorado in most cases? When we buy
They
a house?
Specified it.
They exist, whether
They
you
exist,
get them
but
with the purchase
it
of a
would be
property
normal
is...
to have them now.
Doesn't the real estate manual talk about it as a bundle of sticks? Does it?
Right.
It's a bundle of rights.
Bundle of rights.
Yes.
The
Yep.
little image in the book, if I remember
Is-
correctly.
Yep, sticks.
see.
You could have just a couple, or all of
Or
them,
all of them.
or just one, or
Yeah. So the definition of mineral rights would be the privilege of gaining income from the sale of oil, gas, and other valuable resources found on land.
All right. And so what we're saying here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, is that you do not own, unless on the traditional contract to buy and sell real estate, that you do not own the mineral rights underneath the property. So if you strike oil,
You're
you're
out of
out of
They-
luck.
yeah.
Somebody else owns it, right?
someone else probably owns it. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. What about water
Well,
rights?
I was just gonna say, water rights are the same.
Yep.
If you, unless it's specified on the contract when you're purchasing your property that you have mineral or water rights, you don't.
So they're excluded unless included.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is that the general rule?
Yes.
They're excluded?
Well, for residential real estate, yes. When you get into the rural stuff.
When you're out east or out west?
Right. When you're outside of the residential contract.
Okay.
Okay. So that's mineral rights is our word of the day. Our topic of the day, as we mentioned, is credit. I will throw out a Rob disclaimer here that I that FICO score, I always try to refer to it as FICO score on me. Because, if you guys, I'm sure you know, but the FICO is an independent company with an algorithm that assigns a value to our lives. And as much as I want to resist the machine, it's an integral part of our lives. I remember when I bought my house in 2006 and the market did what it did and everything. I remember thinking, next time I go buy a house, several years from now, I'm going to tell that lender how it's going to be. And then I walked into that office. He said, "Sign here." I said, "Yes, sir." That's how you want to buy a house. You gotta play by the rules. And
You do.
There's no way around it.
So what is credit?
Well, credit is a snapshot or a picture, or it's basically your bills and your ability to pay. And each creditor reports to the 3 bureaus that we have. And as Rob just denoted, FICO will generate a score for you, which will dictate what your interest rate is, and even so much as what you pay for insurance, homeowners insurance and auto insurance. Everything is related to credit. Without it, it's really hard to exist, as Rob was just talking about.
Seriously, I was gonna walk in that office. I was gonna talk to him. I was gonna say, you know what? I know the game. I know about fractional reserve lending. I know about fiat money, and then we had a baby on the way. We were able to buy a house because FICO had deemed me a human being.
Deemed you a human being.
And so he said, "This is where you sign." I said, "Okay."
I mean, it's kind of a necessary evil, especially if you're a lender, because how can you judge whether someone will pay their bills? And if you're taking the risk to lend someone a huge amount of, like, I'm going to get a $250,000 loan, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
They want to know that they're going to get paid back, So
That's actually just so I'd like to address that. That is one of the key components, yes, that we look at is your ability to repay. But when we underwrite a loan, we're not just looking at your credit; we're looking at your income as well. You have to have the ability to repay the loan. Just because you've had a history of paying all of your bills up until today, that doesn't necessarily say that you're going to be doing that in the future. Maybe you were a rocket scientist last Friday, and this week you're working 7-Eleven. I mean, your circumstances change. Your credit can change with it.
But Ken, I would be. So we do a lot of work here with helping renters find homes, and one thing that I think the FICO score, well, I know it excludes, but it ought to if it were trying to capture the whole person concept is rental history.
Yes.
You know, why don't they get credit for being
Paying
good
rent
tenants?
on
You know,
Right. Well, and that's
Yeah.
because the rental agencies and the apartment buildings don't all report. They don't report to the bureaus unless, of course, they take action against you, and then that
Then
does
it's
appear.
negative.
Yeah, that does appear in your credit report, and that's really bad. Never, and I can't emphasize this enough. Never get an eviction on your credit. It is extremely hard for me to get through that through underwriting.
Is it worse than a bankruptcy?
I would say it's on par.
On par with
Yeah,
bankruptcy.
I mean it doesn't have the same legal restrictions, but an underwriter, yeah, they don't like that. Especially my underwriters, particularly don't like evictions.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I was actually not aware of that.
Serious,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean that's your house payment, and you're applying for a house payment, and you demonstrated your willingness to walk away.
Are there any extenuating circumstances?
There
that
can
might-
be.
yeah.
I mean, I can't say it's not impossible, but you better have a really good reason. Like I was hospitalized for 6 months, or you know, you can't write on your letter of explanation, "Oh, I got mad at the landlord and left." Okay.
Are you going to get mad at your mortgage lender and not pay your
Yeah.
mortgage?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the interest rates went down this year. Why can't I lower my payment?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So we know what credit is. What's our first question? I think we have a list here. Is it true that if a person keeps high balances, it's good for their score?
Oh, no, that's actually one of my favorite myths. I sit down with a lot of couples who are credit challenged, and they all have balances on their prepaid credit cards that they own, and they were all told the same thing, which is, you know, if I keep it close to the credit limit, that my credit score is going to be great, and in fact, that's false, totally false.
Well, let me not contradict you on that, but we're doing some remodeling, and I put the appliances on a credit card recently, and my credit score actually jumped about 40 points.
So I can address that actually.
Okay.
A zero balance doesn't show your ability to pay or not to pay. It's like a non sequitur. It's a non-event. What I tell people when I'm coaching them to repair their credit, and let's say that they have their small credit cards maxed out and they happen to have assets, i.e. money in the bank, I make them pay it down to $10, because when I play with the credit profiles, I have a program that I have at work where I'm able to go in and make changes to balances, pay off debt, don't pay off debt, and I can tweak it until I get the best score. And I have found a $10 balance on cards over a period of time will absolutely spike your score. Rather than zero. So what I coach people to do is get the thing down to zero, go out and buy one tank of gas or one trip to the grocery store, go home and pay that off immediately, down to $10.
Or 2 grande white chocolate mochas from Starbucks.
Well, that's not a need.
Take a friend out to
Take a
coffee.
friend for coffee.
That's not a need.
Oh, I see.
Starbucks. Coffee is not a need. Well, hold on. Let me
No,
rephrase
back
that. Hold
off
on.
a little
Yeah,
there.
no.
Yeah.
Coffee at Starbucks is not a need. I need coffee. Don't get me wrong, but you need gas for your car.
Go get a bag of Folgers from the store and invite your friend over.
Yes.
Make some drip coffee.
It's probably more memorable that you had that conversation at your kitchen table anyway.
I like your approach there. I like your need versus want.
Yes.
All right.
Needs versus wants.
So our next question there is, what is the highest credit score?
Does anybody know?
No.
I do because you told me
But-
just a little while
Oh,
ago.
well then please go ahead and tell us
It's
again.
850.
That is correct.
I don't know what the lowest score is.
300.
Though. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Whoa. I've never seen
The highest
anything
score
that
that I have ever actually pulled on a borrower was 835. That's the highest I've seen.
So
What's
you've
the
never seen
lowest?
a perfect credit score.
I've never seen an 850. No.
What's the lowest you've ever seen?
Non scores are the lowest, but I think 410 was the lowest I've seen so far.
So I thought I had an 815 at one point. I thought FICO had an 815 on me at one point. And I went to refinance my house, and the lender told me that my median score was a 679, and I said, no, that's impossible.
That's
You know,
impossible.
the system says, the USA's credit
Yes.
system, and so why are there multiple scores?
That's an interesting question. So if you were to go on creditkarma.com and pull your credit report, and they were to give you your consumer credit score, it would be far different, or different at least, than the score that I would pull. But also be different from an auto dealership or say a furniture place. As a mortgage lender, we have what's called an SIC code, and so do auto dealerships, and it's how we build our algorithms to go in and pull scores.
So is it unique to your company, or is it something
No,
someone
industry.
else could like look
Industry.
up
Industry
on their own?
No, you have to be able to pull
You have
credit.
to, you have to
from-
subscribe to the system and be able to be authorized to subscribe to the system.
Yeah.
So there's Credit Karma. When I look at mine, for example, not plugging USA, but that's
It
the one I
shows it
use.
on the side when you log in. Yep.
My Experian credit score says
Uh-huh.
X. Why do I not get to see what you see?
I think I don't have a legitimate reason. I can go all conspiracy on you.
That might change the tone of
That
it.
was kind of yeah, I'll say probably what you don't want to say. Money. Is it about money?
I don't know that it's
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we get charged. I mean, we charge. We just started recently charging, but we charge you for your credit report. But we're charged for credit reports. We're charged for supplementals, meaning like if we have to make sure that a card balance is zero that you tell me is zero, we have to pay the company that we pull credit from to do that. So, I mean, yeah, it is. I would say that would be a fair statement. It's all about the money. It's always boils down to that, doesn't it?
The most often.
Most
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our next question on the list, I think we just kind of answered it, was how many credit bureaus are there?
There are 3. Yeah.
Wasn't there a 4th one being talked about?
Yeah, and I should look that up, and
Oh,
I've
okay.
heard that floated too, but I don't know that it's gained any traction yet.
Well, they were talking about the 4th one simultaneously, if I remember correctly. At the same time, they were talking about adding renters' payments
Right.
as a function.
Well, and recently the credit profiles have also changed internally for what we see. It used to be that they would just show you the monthly, did you make the payment, didn't you make the payment.
Mm-hmm.
Now the reports are far more detailed. They can show us when you paid the payment.
So how late it was.
Right, whether you paid it on day 15 or 16, or if you paid it on day 1 or whatever. Which brings me to another point that I didn't write on the sheet that I'd love to go over.
What's that?
A lot of people run their credit cards throughout the month and they pay it off every month, and they assume that their balance is zero because on the first they pay it. The reality is the creditors do not report until mid-month or third week. So whatever your balance is mid-month or third week is what's actually being reported on a monthly basis. They don't report on the first, or they don't report when you make the payment. They want to show what you're actually using anyway.
So is it beneficial to, if you are doing that, to pay on a certain day of the month?
I recommend to have people call your creditor and find out what day that they report. If you sincerely want to show a zero balance, I mean, if you have a $20,000 or 10 or let's say $3,000 limit, you're only using $1,000 every month and you're paying it off. It's not really gonna hurt your score all that much. If you have a $300 limit and you're spending $300 a month, then that's absolutely gonna hurt you every month. But I would call your creditor and find out what day they report, and they all have their own day. And then make that payment 3 or 4 days beforehand, because of course they don't, as you already know, they don't record everything the same day.
There's a much broader topic that would be probably the domain of another different type of podcast, but the decentralization of all this information. I feel like we've gone away from a centralized repository of information. There's very few people who you can call and get this wealth of information. It will take the time to go through that information with you. And you have to be an expert in all things, it seems like, to not get taken advantage of.
I've helped a lot of people try to repair credit so they can buy a house, and I've been doing this for a little while, so
I'm going to give
I live and learn.
Mike a shameless plug here. He's sincerely invested in helping people.
I do.
As are Nanette, myself, and Laurie. So
I wasn't intending that as a plug, but I'll take it. Yes.
That was me giving you a plug. Okay, so does your credit score impact things other than my credit interest rates?
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier, actually, but your insurance rates are coupled. Coupled to your score. The higher your score, the lower your insurance rate.
Why is that?
I have a theory on it. I haven't done any reading on it, but I think if you show the ability to pay your bills and you're taking care of that aspect of your life, you would take care of everything else.
So they probably view it
You're
as a
more
higher credit
responsible.
score,
Right.
a less
more
of an
responsible
insurance
person.
risk.
Correct.
Interesting.
Which, if you think about it, makes a lot of sense to a degree.
Yeah, it does imply that you must use credit to be you know, what if you just happen to eschew credit? Like, I don't want to be part of the FICO machine.
Well, and that I've run into that. I've run into people with nothing. They're ghosts. They have no score, and they don't even have a collection account, which means they pay all their bills. You know.
But that hurts you
have no
too.
credit.
Yeah, you can't get along.
I had a client once who had some substantial reserves, but they could have bought the house that they were looking at buying 3 times over with the money they had in the bank in cash, but they wanted a mortgage. And this is before I met Mike. But the individual who gave the loan had actually worked it where they had to put money, they had to set aside some money in an annuity that paid them as a monthly stipend, and then they were able to turn that stipend into income.
So he lacked income and credit.
Well, right, they were retired,
right,
so, or semi-retired, so they didn't have the income, and so they had to structure their money so that it paid them a monthly thing. So they were quite annoyed, but also they wanted to take advantage of the low borrowing rates versus spending the capital on a home.
Yeah. I've funded a few loans like that where people have large sums of money and they've paid themselves. They had already structured it though prior to coming to me.
I would say one thing to FICO, if you are listening, I welcome giving me a ring and let's have a discussion about your system. I'm not disparaging you. Next question. Should I use a credit repair agency if my credit is bad to repair it?
Oh my God, no. Okay. No. Biggest offender out there that I see on everybody's credit report and they want to go use is Lexington Law. They pop up so often, especially when I'm dealing with troubled borrowers. Lexington Law charges you $99 a month for what I could sit with you an hour and teach you to do all by yourself.
Okay.
So all they do is stop paying your bills. They stop paying your creditors. They put your money aside minus your $99 a month, and then they make lump sum payments to your creditors every 6 months to a year, whatever it takes for them to accumulate enough cash to offer your creditors.
They're kind of like
they're shysters. I hate them.
That's a pretty bold statement to go on record with.
Wow.
On record.
Okay.
I hate them.
What about?
I run into it so often.
But is that a good idea for people who once they have the money in their hot little hands, it burns a hole in their pocket, and they just have a hard time not spending, and so maybe that's a way for them to control
Is that really worth $99 a
control the
month?
flow? I don't know. If the alternative is they don't pay their bills at all.
Yeah, but their credit goes. Their credit goes from bad to horrible because they stop paying everything. You know,
so
most
got
people.
Late pays on every
Well, yeah,
so
most
it makes
people,
it even worse. So it's a way to pay your debt off, but it makes your credit score horrible. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, and also puts you in jeopardy of being placed in collection, having lawsuits, getting garnishments, and
so
ultimately,
if you owe $5,000, company X says we're not going to pay that until the debtor comes back and says, "Hey, we'll settle it for $4,000."
Right. They try to. I would imagine that their strategy is they probably try to collect half or a third, and then they call a creditor and offer them an offer compromise
for a payoff.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Shoot, I had one more thought. Oh, what about the strategy? I've heard this mentioned about dispute everything. What do you think about that?
I'm gonna get myself in trouble here.
Wait, do you mean dispute everything, even things that are yours?
Correct. There are people out there advocating that.
Okay, so I'm going to hurt a lot of feelings, but I'm sorry. If you have a whole bunch of bad credit items on your report, go ahead, turn the mic this way. If you have a whole bunch of bad credit, it's 99% of the time it's yours. Call up, make arrangements. You know, try to make it better. Try to make good on the debt that you have, even if it takes you a while. The creditors want to hear from you. You know, it's better to address the problem in advance before they go to collections, and then ultimately, if it's a high enough debt, they'll take you and get a judgment against you, and they'll take 3% of your paycheck. You know, I think it's a bad idea to dispute everything. All it does is prolong your agony. It doesn't really hide anything, and if a account's disputed, in some cases we make you undisputed to see how it affects your score, because the dispute actually is erased from your score model.
Gotcha.
So I think it's a bad idea.
I've heard that can whiplash quite quickly too.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the language is, but the credit report, if you dispute an accurate item, they will mark it on your credit report as fraudulent dispute of some
I've
type.
never seen that, but
Okay.
I think it's bad over there.
Okay. No, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm just curious about your thought process on that strategy.
Well, I thought I made that pretty clear.
Yeah. All right. So our last question on credit is, what is the best way to repair my credit?
Well, call Mike Mattice, 719-505-3467. Shameless plug over.
Yeah.
I would actually love to sit down with anybody that wants to come in, and I'll teach you the same things. But basically, it's if you have high balances in your credit cards, try to get them, but to start with, below 30%. And then
30%. So like if you have a
$1,000,
$1,000, it's below 300.
300, yes.
Okay.
If you can get to that point with all your cards, and then ultimately you want to get to zero. Or $10 if you want to. if you're looking, it does work. I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've done it.
Is there like a magic debt to income ratio that is?
Debt to income ratio has nothing to do with your credit score.
No?
That has more to do with qualifying for the loan. What it is ratio of what you're using of the available credit limit. So a way I explain this all the time to people, it doesn't matter if you have $300 in revolving credit available to you, meaning you can go out and charge all the way up to $300 out of all your cards, or if you have $3 million in revolving credit. What matters is what percentage of your revolving are you using. That's the determining factor. And of course, are you paying your bills on time?
So I would throw out there as a realtor too. I recommend if you have any credit questions to give Mike a call for legitimately. Mortgage lenders want to earn your business. They have no joke. They have a financial incentive.
Yeah, I have a vested interest
just in getting you to the point where you can qualify. So they're going to give you free, high quality advice on how to.
I actually like helping people too.
But
Yeah.
then I know you do.
Well, and it sounds like that place that charges $99 a month. Their end game is to make $99 a month
$99
off you.
a
They
month.
don't care what your credit looks like. Whereas if they go to you, your end game is to get their
Right.
business and give them a mortgage. And if what they're looking for is to improve their credit so they can get a mortgage,
Then it
you're the
follows.
And
person
then
who it
to-
logically makes sense to go
Right,
to.
and then to answer your question that you asked earlier, what if they don't have the discipline and they need that $99 a month? When I sit down with people, I introduce them to Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
And I actually sit down. I've done this, and I've had people download their statements, and I print them out, and I highlight all the money that they're spending uselessly. I put them on Dave Ramsey, and I help them develop a budget before I send them home. And then it's up to them. I mean, I can help you guys learn, but you have to execute. But Dave Ramsey is a wonderful resource if you really want to start working on your credit life.
There you go. All right, well, so that's our topic of credit for the week. Next up is the Magic 8 Ball.
Oh.
Well,
Well, I can tell
Save
you,
it for the end of the
I can tell you from this week to last week, interest rates went up by a half a basis point this morning.
What does that translate to on
It's not. It wasn't an actual rate movement,
Okay.
but in a basis point, meaning what we would either give you a credit for, or you would have to pay a discount to get a lower rate. So that got worse
reduced
this morning.
flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So
Okay.
we're actually getting close to seeing an actual rate increase at this point.
Which, as we've talked about before, if we see a 1% rise,
Oh, I'm talking maybe an eighth
Okay.
this week, but I
Okay.
mean, if it's a trend,
okay.
we can
Alright.
start marching up. I don't see it, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
Rates are probably going to hold steady for
For a while.
until 2020.
Oh, so what's the 8 Ball say?
I don't know.
Rates
Let's
and
find out. Here we
policy?
go. Will the rates go up? It is decidedly so.
Okay, there you go.
So there you have it.
That is not lending or legal advice. It's just the Magic 8 Ball's take on rates. So you
Seems
might,
to be fairly accurate so
Yeah,
far.
up is down, right is left.
Right.
So, war is peace.
I was going to say, your shirt says war is peace,
It
freedom
sure
is
does,
slavery, ignorance is spring.
Yes, no comment. Other than the book 1984 by George Orwell is a fantastic read.
That's your plug.
So, which
Is that your
actually-
plug for the week?
No, yeah, that's to say our next segment is recommended books. So I would recommend 1984 by George Orwell. No real estate connection there, but anybody have any books
Doesn't
or
always have
websites
to have a real
that they
estate
would
connection.
recommend?
Yeah, I'm actually listening to The Magic of Big Thinking, which I think is a little bit of an older book, but I'm enjoying it. It's a business book.
The Magic of Big Thinking.
The Magic of Big Thinking, yeah.
Well, since you brought up Dave Ramsey, I'm going to plug the Total Money Makeover workbook.
Yeah.
I did that probably like 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It was very helpful.
Very.
Got me on track.
It works.
Well, there you have it.
I will recommend one.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Actually, I can't use it, but I have a friend who did. My bank doesn't link to it. But for somebody who's really into doing things online, You Need a Budget is a great resource. And she got herself completely out of debt and has money in the bank now within 2 years.
Awesome.
So
it's possible if you
it
dedicate
just tracks
yourself.
everything. It links to most banks. I have a credit union, so it doesn't. But it tracks all your money. You have to assign every dollar. Every dollar has a job, and I think it really speaks to maybe more the millennials that are used to functioning that way. But good resource.
Yeah. Any resource to help you budget your money and plan for your future is good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. This has been episode 6 of TBD, the Colorado Springs Real Estate Podcast. Thank you for your time and have a great week.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.